Hi everybody, I'm Jeff with Virginia Paranormal Investigations, and today we are heading out to the Battleship North Carolina, which is a very historic battleship down here. Is it just outside of Wilmington, or is it in Wilmington? It's in Wilmington, okay. And it's got some history behind it. It's also got a couple ghost stories behind it. And I'm going to turn you over to our research department so they can tell you a little bit about the history behind the battleship.
The keel of the USS North Carolina was laid in October of 1937, and it was commissioned on April 9th of 1941. At the time, it was the first of 10 fast battleships that was to join the American fleet in World War II, and it was considered at the time to be the world's greatest sea weapon. Now the USS North Carolina is armed with 9 16-inch 45 caliber guns and 20 5-inch 38 caliber guns, and it is was carrying at the time of war 144 commissioned officers, 2,195 enlisted men, and also approximately 100 Marines. Now, during World War II, it participated in just about every major naval offensive in the Pacific, and it earned 15 battle stars during that time and steamed over 300,000 miles. It was torpedoed at least once, and it saw a little bit of damage, but it had a lot of near misses. So by the end of the war, they had only lost about 10 men in action, and there were about 65 that were wounded. It served as a training ship for midshipmen after the war, and was eventually decommissioned on June 27th of 1947. It was placed on an inactive reserve fleet in Bayonne, New Jersey, and it was scheduled to be scrapped, but the people of North Carolina came together and saved the ship and brought it to North Carolina, where it could serve as sort of a memorial for veterans of World War II and for the 11,000 men from North Carolina who had died.
So here we are on the deck of the North Carolina. And Kim, what's your opinion so far?
At the moment, I'm trying to find these unfriendly alligators.
Yeah, don't feed them.
Okay, well, there was a sign about how they were not our friends, and I just wanted to test the theory.
Yeah.
But so far, they're hiding.
These guns on the front,
Yes.
how big are they?
I think the twin ones that you see up there are, let's see, what did they say? They said 5-inch,
5-inch.
38 caliber.
That's these
Don't
ones.
they have the
Yep.
machine guns on the side too for like planes?
Yeah, there's some machine guns behind us here.
Yep.
And then what about those huge ones out there? You seen
The
those?
huge ones were, they had 9 16-inch 45 caliber guns.
Wow.
Can
That's
you
pretty
imagine
impressive.
that?
Yeah, and they're the small ones. There should be 20 of the 5-inch 38 caliber weapon
Dude,
guns
Jeff,
on here.
these guys sat in these little machine guns over here and fought off enemy aircraft.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. It's
Let-
definitely an impressive.
I mean, they didn't have any protection. All they had was their gun and their bodies feeding them ammo. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, and some of those guys weren't even nothing but 16 years old.
you have no idea,
They just think
like
it's
up
hot.
close, like actually being on the deck of the ship, how big it is.
Did
You know,
hear
you see
that?
them in the
Did
movies
you
and
hear
stuff.
that view? It's hot.
Yeah, I think there's
The flag's coming down, right?
the flag usually comes down at 5. It's well
Is
past
that recorded or?
I think it's coming from one of the buildings across the water there. There's the city of Wilmington behind us.
Oh,
From what we
okay.
can see, it looks pretty nice.
'Cause
And
it's still
we're
going.
right at the right time with the sun going down and everything. The moon's coming up over here. So we're getting ready to get into this investigation. But like I said, I just wanted to say, up close, these guns in the front. Come around here and take a look at this.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
This thing was definitely well armed, as it said in the info that we read on it. As you can see, they got all the machine guns off to the side here. But just to give you an idea how huge these guns are up close. It's quite a sight. And to think that we're standing here on the deck of this battleship that was active, very active in World War II. You know, a lot of heroes walked the decks of this ship, and the history that it holds is really amazing. So hopefully we'll learn a little bit more of that as we go along. We didn't really get to take a tour or anything like that, so I think we're just going to kind of go in and just see it as we go along, see if we can pick up any good evidence of any kind of paranormal activity that may still be lingering from behind. We got this bell here from the cruiser North Carolina. Looks like it was on there from 1908 to 1921. She cruised the Caribbean and Mediterranean in humanitarian and diplomatic activities. Very active participant in early naval aviation experiments. The first ship to catapult, launch an airplane at sea on November 5th, 1915. So it's really great to be able to see all these artifacts that they have on display here from significant times in history. And as we always talk about, with instances like this where there was so much emotion and so much going on, you never know what kind of energy could be left behind, be it residual or intelligent. You know, with stuff like this, it's got to be haunted. It's got to have stuff that's left behind, especially with all the reports, what people have seen aboard this ship. Do you know, what are some of the ghost stories associated with this ship? Yeah, I'm not really sure either. I know there was 10 people that died on this ship, right?
Okay. There was one specific area, I believe they said in the bow, in the port side, where she was torpedoed. And supposedly it killed a number of men, and one of those men has been left behind, they believe. They see him walking the decks. They see him in various places throughout the ship. They've also seen him, I believe, looking through the portholes on one side from the lower areas off the ship as well. So we're going to keep an eye out for him. And given that there's many other men that had died on the ship in action, you know, chances are we could have more than one spirit on the ship.
Absolutely.
Well, it's not to mention the fact that just because there were only 10 recorded deaths in battle, you never know who passed away from disease or you know, sickness, things of that nature, just natural causes while they were stationed on the ship.
If it was a place that they were fond of or where they had an emotional attachment to, people that didn't necessarily die on this ship could still return to it, you know, because it holds strong emotion for them, whether it be a time in their life where they, you know, felt great honor, great courage, fond memories. Who knows? I mean, I know, you know, the memories can't all be fond, but, you know, because it's seen its share of war and tragedy. But still, you know, the camaraderie that they built with their shipmates as they were serving aboard this ship may still hold strong in their heart. Who knows? They could come back for reasons like that. We never know. We don't know why ghosts come back or why they haunt certain locations, just some theories. All right, down into the galley. Wash your head.
See, there's light back in here. Let's see if we can follow this down.
Wow. This is pretty big. I'm surprised. Here we got the post office. They still have it set up like it was back in the 40s, maybe. And over here we got the ship's store. What did you say about this area behind you here?
What I said was, in the list of deaths that they talked about on the ship here, there was one man who had died in an accident in what they called barbette number 3. Now, of course, I don't know what a barbette is, but when I came over and read the sign back here, it said that this curved wall encompasses barbette number 3. So right in here somewhere, there was definitely somebody killed.
I'm willing to bet it's a bar.
A female barb?
What?
A female barb.
A female bar.
Naval terms anymore because of the shrake. Was it shraking?
Oh, the
incident?
strafing.
Strafing.
Strafing? Or
Yeah, so you scrape
yeah.
the barnacles off the fin.
Keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
What was that scraping again?
It was heavy,
Repeated.
constant fire, like a
Yeah.
bombardment
Yeah.
of fire, or fire coming from low planes.
Shrapnel. It's called shraping?
Yeah, they call
Strafing?
this-
Strafing. It's like when you're
Yes,
sweating a lot and you
strafing.
walk a long distance, you start strafing.
Chafing.
Watch
Wow, that was me. I know what a bed at a bar is. I lost a few of them.
Tell me when.
When?
A barbette is a protective circular armor mounting for a cannon or heavy artillery gun.
Oh.
So that would be what was housed behind that circular wall if you swing the camera around in the dark, since the light just went on.
Okay, so we're standing here in this dark room, right? Can you see me? You can see me.
I
kind
can
of,
see
right?
you because of the background
I'd like
of
to
the
demonstrate
light.
this light right here, which you can't see. You
Yes,
step over
let's
this way. You
pan
can't
around
see-
to the dark.
You can't see down there, right? Now, if I
Not
put this
much.
on like this, you can see a little bit down there, right? You see in that doorway? Mm-hmm. But wait a minute, it's got a second setting where, boom, look at that.
Oh yeah,
I'm like wearing a spotlight on my head.
from spooky to less spooky.
Exactly. And this is, this light right here is, of course, built by craftsmen. Hey, those glasses are interesting. What, where does one acquire such glasses?
Sears, the
Sears.
Craftsman brand. Yep.
Here, let me hold.
That's interesting. That's the same brand as the
And if I
headlamp,
turn
isn't
on
it?
this,
I believe so.
And your flashlight
I
too,
gotta go
right?
like this.
I don't think so.
Look at this.
It could actually be the speaker
This is
itself.
the wishing well.
Sometimes the little nail end gets a little bent or gets,
Wishing well? Not exactly.
Is anybody in here?
Oh look, we could have found the definition of barbette right there.
Oh, they have barbette on the sign.
When all else fails.
Linda, what's the story with this wishing well down here?
They said that this wishing well was not actually a wishing well. This was one of the areas that they would lower equipment and munitions and everything down to the lower decks because you can access just about every deck from here. They have, of course, now closed it off. You can throw money down here and make a wish. They use it as a wishing well, but and evidently they collect the money every so often, and it goes to the USS North Carolina.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I really believe that if you go down where the torpedoes hit, the guys that may have tried to, fasten that hole or lock the bulkhead and watertight it, they might be responsive if you just knock on the bulkhead with 3 long, 3 short, 3 long. And I think you might, I don't know what the response to that is. But I think you might hear some tapping back from the metal because I do know from watching, and I'm going to be honest, Under Siege,
Oh yeah.
that's how they, communicated to the, sailors that were in the whatever space under there where they were letting the water fill up the little area.
Right.
And I mean, I like I said, I'm not military. I have no military experience. I love the military, but never got the opportunity. I lost my sight, and I learned through movies. My dad won't talk about his experience from Vietnam. He tells me he don't owe me that, and he don't want to talk about it. So
Right.
all the things that I've learned, I had to go to museums and stuff and watch, Steven Seagal movies.
That'll be interesting about the bulkhead there. Do you know where that area is with where the torpedoes hit?
They said in the bow, in the port side. So we're not too far from the bow right now. I'm assuming that we just keep heading, uphill here. The floor kind of is leaning uphill as we go. So I imagine if we keep going in this direction, we'll probably reach the bow.
All right, we'll find Kim
The
and
bow
we'll go
is
ahead and
what,
check that
the
out.
back
too.
or the front?
The bow's the front.
What is your name? I want to thank you for letting me come here. I hope that you notice that we're here to communicate with you, and if you want to, you can speak to us through this device in my hand. All you got to do is come here and talk into this. Use your energy and talk through this speaker. And we'll be able to tell whatever you want to say.
What do you think about this room right here? We just did a session with the spirit box.
Well, the one thing that threw me for a loop was I dropped the spirit box twice, and we both know my spirit box has a loose connecting speaker, and it didn't disconnect at all. So there's obviously no interference or anything in here, you know what I mean, as far as radio frequency wise. Because
Right.
it was picking up, you could hear little stations coming through it fine.
My thoughts are it's going to be very easy to get lost in this place, so we need to stick together.
Definitely.
But there are a lot of creepy places in this ship. I wandered a little ways back to the head, and when you walk in there, it's like they've got these mirrors, and you can see into the mirrors and see other mirrors, and it just gives you this kind of disoriented effect, and it's really kind of creepy. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun tonight.
By head, you mean the front of the ship or the bathroom?
Yeah, I was
the
about to say
restroom.
thought
No,
that.
the head is the restroom,
Yeah.
just
Oh, okay.
like the propeller's called a screw.
So we're using.
So you was in the bathroom?
I was in the bathroom. I was
Okay,
in the men's
all right.
bathroom, yes.
All right, so we're headed towards the back of the ship, right?
We are. I think we're headed towards the front, towards the bow.
I thought you were just in the head. You came from the other way.
No, I was in the head in the bathroom in the head.
Oh, okay.
It's called the head.
This looks like it was the barber shop in here.
Yes.
I don't know how well you can see in there, but we
Yeah.
have the,
Little glare off the
Seats.
plexiglass there.
yeah. And it looks like there's another level down here, of course, which may lead us to, here we're well lit.
Yeah.
If you want to think about somebody who would elicit a response, it'd probably be one of them before it'd be one of me.
Yeah, they're probably gonna say hello.
What do you got in there?
It looks like the ship's
Especially in
laundry.
the 30s.
My husband's Navy. I'm pretty used
Laundry
to it.
receiving room.
Yeah, you're probably going down the hole. I'd like to go down that way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, think about your work.
Oh, God.
Oh, please don't hurt. I'm not sure this is going to be the best spot for you to try to go down, honestly.
What is, where are we right now?
We are supposedly in the pilot house, I believe. It said something upstairs on the sign about that there is, this is steering. It's where the man used to steer the rudders of the ship.
I like it down here.
I do too. I do too. It's pretty creepy.
us going.
Yeah.
And we'll say our names. I'm Jeff.
Linda.
Kim?
And we're here in the rudder room.
Yeah, like the rudder control room.
Rudder control room.
Pilot house.
And we got quite an echo in here. But we'd like to know if there is anybody here with us. We don't want to trespass or to intrude on your territory. We'd just like to know if there is anybody here with us. Can you tell us your name? How many of you are here with us? Can you tell us your rank? How old are you? That looks so heavy. Because we hadn't eaten since noon. Yeah, we're kind of hungry. What was your favorite food? And we can talk a little bit about that. We were down in the galley a little earlier. I can imagine the amount of time we were on the ship was a lot of time to spend in that place. Eating every meal there. Moving.
Maybe you should. That's weird.
Actually, it was some of the wire, but it's not.
It's not the digital voice recorders.
No. I was close enough to it. So you can write a bomb on this.
Yeah.
Not going off.
You already checked everything.
There's something right around here, maybe.
I think so. Can you move something in this room to let us know that you're here? Did you have a family? Perhaps children?
How long were you on the ship?
All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to set up some of the mag lights and see if we can do a little flashlight session. We're thinking that maybe being that if it was someone here with us that caused the EMF detector to spike, maybe they'll be able to manipulate the flashlights and communicate with us. So we're going to give it a try.
And if you try, you might be able to make one of the flashlights turn on. Can you do that for us? If there's someone here, can you turn the flashlight on? Any one of them. The flashlights turn on and off by turning the very front end of the flashlight.
Sorry.
Do you have them set up though?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're set so that it only would take a
Slight tap?
slight turn, yes.
Yeah, so even if you can just slightly tap the front of one, it may come on for us. Can you just turn on any one of those flashlights? If you can turn one on and we can see that you can do it, then we'll be able to ask you some questions. I did hear some movement.
That was another girl,
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
but there's no way to tell that part. But I did hear it.
Well, we just heard that one move, and then, like, wouldn't we have heard footsteps if someone was coming out here?
Yeah, you would think
That's
so.
possible.
A little closer to where it came from and see. Okay. Excuse me.
Motion light. All right, say again.
There does not seem to be anyone up there. I just went to the ladder well and I didn't see any shadows of the other people or hear any type of indication that they were anywhere near where we are.
It was definitely kind of creepy down there, so dark and quiet, but there was a couple of strange things. The knock that we heard that was in a different part of the area was a little bit strange because we know there were no other groups in the area. And the EVP spikes were kind of odd. You know, we walked around a little bit with the EMF detector, and hadn't found any EMFs anywhere, but there was definitely a couple of spikes, so it was strange. I'm looking forward to seeing if we have any EVPs.
Now we're on to the next point of interest, wherever that may be. I'm not sure. So we get lost on the ship. Alright, so what's down there?
All kinds of creepy stuff. Definitely an engine room, that's for sure.
Okay, we're in the boiler room.
Oh, the boiler room. Boiler rooms are always haunted, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Crew memories, that's cool. Fairly hot down there when you were operating on equipment. I had guys dropping out all around and sweating so much that water was actually running out of their shoes.
Wow.
It got above 135 degrees time up there.
72 hours down here in the boiler room.
Yeah.
Wow. Could you imagine being down here for 72 hours with it not being hot? Wow.
Yeah, it's not really We are down in the boiler room. This is Linda. Kim.
Jeff?
And we would like to know if anyone is down here with us. If there is, if you could please speak to us. We don't mean you any harm. We just want to communicate, just want to talk to you.
There are a lot of surfaces down here that you could touch, tap, hit. That was me knocking. That you could let us know so that we would know that you were here if you had something you wanted to say to us. Or if you just want some company. Do you like having people down here?
Can you tell us your name? How many of you are down here? We heard it was so hot that you could cook down here. Is that correct? What did you cook? Did you have a wife or a girlfriend? If so, what was her name? I keep feeling like I'm hearing movement back here.
I heard that too a couple
Yeah.
times.
Just like a quick little.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
It's not just like settling noise, like a pop of the metal or something either. It's something different.
Hopefully we'll pick it up. Well, we're finishing up down here in the boiler room, and we did an EVP session. We heard some noises, a couple of clicks, couple of things that seemed a little out of place. There could have potentially been one very quick voice, but there were a couple of times that we did ask a question and hear an immediate noise afterwards, so that could be promising. Overall, the feeling down here is just a little bit uneasy, but certainly that can be attributed to it being completely dark down here.
So when you're doing an EVP session, the last thing you want is a stuffy nose. Lucky for me, I had Smart Sense nasal spray. Just 2 shots in each nostril, and I can breathe again. No more mistaking a stuffy nose for an EVP.
Ooh, yeah, very The Shining.
Yes, it is. The urinals and showers back in here. Check my hair while I'm
Hey,
here.
look, I made it in the video.
Look at the sunset.
It's to save water. Wet down, soak up, or wet down, turn water, soak up, turn water off.
Alright, here's where it starts getting a little darker, a little creepier,
Yes.
a little bit more scene.
Oh wow, not much has changed, Jeff.
What's that?
The crew, it says, the crew memory, it says you would get in line, the pharmacist mate with his clipboard would go around and asking, what's your problem, buddy? Generally, he would hand you a couple of aspirin and send you back on duty.
Of course. Now it's Motrin.
Yeah, now it's a 200 milligram ibuprofen.
So here we are in sickbay. Examination tables.
You think I'm sick? Can you come examine me?
Yeah, I'll be right there. Hold on.
Should I leave?
What is that right
Ha.
there? That you just took a picture in?
Like, that's some serious...
That is the dark room.
Look,
I guess they developed the x-rays there.
it looks creepy in there.
Ooh, yeah.
Just, it looks like something out of a
Is that
horror
reflection?
movie. Yeah, I think so.
These rooms are all dark.
There's
No,
no
I
dark side of
think
the
I mean,
room.
I think it's like the dark room, like, you know, where they develop the x-rays.
Oh, so it's not like this room.
No.
It's the dark room.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, more dark.
Okay, we're in here in the sick ward, so where the guys that were sick would languish. And there's a crew memory here on this sign about a guy from Texas that came in with a 105-degree temperature. They went and got the doc, said this guy needs help pretty badly. A few days later, he died. They did an autopsy here on the ship and found that he died from septicemia toxemia, so sepsis. And they thought that if they had had penicillin on the ship, they could have saved his life.
So what we're going to do is, this could be a point of interest for us tonight. We're going to set up a EVP session here and see if we can pick anything up. We may also use a spirit box. We'll try the EVP first and then go into that and see what happens.
That sounded like it was inside the room here.
It did, on the far side over there, right?
Yeah,
Behind
so-
us.
If that's you, can you make that noise again?
How are you feeling? Are you unwell? Are they taking good care of you here?
A lot of little noises around here, right?
Yeah, there are.
I'm sure you feel bad. You want to go home. Where is your home?
I feel like there's noise coming consistently from that way.
I know. Yeah, there is. Goes again.
Okay, yep.
But the same time, I'm hearing it down this hallway behind us.
Alright, I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna see.
Go around and see
Circle around?
Yeah.
Alright, I'm gonna circle around. If you hear me scream, come after me.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, here we are in the operating room
Oh.
with an excellent shot.
There's the operating room.
Alright, so I'm gonna continue my circle here.
Okay. Let me know at what point you hear it out that door.
Right now.
Okay, and I can still hear it out this door.
There are no other teams.
No, but there was a point when you were back down here that we could, we could hear it out this door and out that door, just like the noises we were hearing. So.
Okay.
So it was coming from, it was like right before you came down here, we saw your light. So
Okay.
you must have been like over here somewhere.
And that probably was right here in this, right here by this ladder well. Because that's where it splits
Kinda
off and goes
splits off.
both ways.
Yeah. So whatever the noise is, it's coming
It's
from
right
probably
here.
right before that ladder well there.
I don't know, might not be able to hear much. We'll see. Can you tell us your name?
Are you still sick? Is that you making that noise in the hallway?
Are you still waiting for someone to help you?
Chris? I heard Chris again. He's waiting? Did he say he's waiting?
He's, but I couldn't make out a second.
Where's the person we have to watch out for? Can you speak more clearly? Tell us where the person is we have to look out for.
I heard front again. It
Yeah,
sounded like front. Could have been a little matrixing, but for it to happen twice is kind of...
Is anyone in danger here?
Why do we have to watch out for this person?
Front. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Maybe we should go to the front of the ship. Is he in front of us or in the front of the ship?
So what we did is a spirit box session and a EVP session here in the sick ward. And one thing to note was there was an interesting couple of noises that happened, and there's obviously going to be noises on a ship. However, these were particularly interesting because they kept sounding like they were coming from the same area. We heard it coming through both doors, and this is a hallway that loops around, so it's hard to say for sure at what point in the hallway it was coming from. We had Kim walk around, and when she got around before the stairwell, that's when we could hear it pretty clear through both doorways. So there's a good possibility that that's where it was coming from, and it was consistent. Not consistent to the point where it's something like in the piping or something like that, like a dripping or something like that, but it was consistently from the same place. Then we heard another kind of what would you describe it as, footsteps or tapping that was coming from inside the room here?
Tapping? I would call it more of a tapping than a footstep.
Yeah, it was kind of a tapping coming from behind us here, and all we have behind us are cots here in the sick ward.
Yeah, we turned on the spirit box, the homemade one, and we were listening, and we kept hearing the name John, and we thought we heard the name Chris a couple of times as well. It also seemed to warn us to be careful of someone in the front of the ship. So we're going to see if we can go find the front of the ship, because that sounds like it might be a good place to go.
When the spirit box was first turned on, the first thing that Linda said was, can you tell us somebody who's here? And we all thought we heard Kim. I was quite happy to know that I was singled out. And then later we thought we heard my name again.
Right. Although after that it said, watch out for him in front of the ship. So, you know.
We don't even talk about that part.
Okay, right here on these signs, it has something called crew memories, and it's actually pretty interesting because it's one of the sailors aboard who is talking about something that happened or his experiences on board the ship. This particular one is talking about when the ship took a torpedo, September 15th, 1942. And according to what he says here, it was given as an order to stand by to abandon ship. They were afraid that this turret number 2 that we're standing in here, if it caught fire, it would explode. It would go up, like he says, like a Chinese firecracker, and it would probably split the ship right down the middle. So he was talking also about the fact that they were one life jacket short, and he wasn't going to have a life jacket if it came right down to it. And somebody had offered him his own life jacket. He said, you could take mine because I'm a good swimmer. So this man, his name was Lieutenant Edward Gallagher, said that he will always remember how he had offered him this life jacket.
Now, this isn't where the torpedo hit, is it?
No, it's a little bit forward of here, I believe, but they said
Okay.
Port side forward of a midship.
forward of a midship, yeah.
So it's towards the front of the ship where you have to watch out for
John near the front of the ship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go look out for John.
Okay. Let's go down the twirly ladder and see what happens here.
Yeah, the twirly ladder.
Okay. What is this?
Must be a VAPI flyer. They always end up on the floor for some reason.
Murder mystery aboard the Henrietta III.
It's quite a stairwell.
This is the mezzanine, more storage. So the platform where you're now standing is called the mezzanine. Provided storage for 121 projectiles. Turret number 2, the only turret with a mezzanine, is located one deck above the main deck, while the other turrets sit directly on the main deck. The extra height allowed room for additional storage. There's also a powder handling room around here
That's right.
called the powder flats by the men. The area below houses the 3 powder hoists which lifted powder bags up 5 levels to the turret's 3 gun barrels.
Now I'd like to point out the fact that this fencing back here is not original. It says that it's added for public safety. Now, if I get from here to there, I don't think there needs to be a fence there, you know what I mean? Like, if I make it that far, I don't think a fence is going to keep me safe, because I'm probably going to bounce off it and land on the ground, you know what I mean? I mean, I could see if there was a walkway out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's kind of a weird fence for public safety, because how am I going to get there?
And what is it protecting me from? Because that just looks like
I think what it's doing is it's protecting me from jumping from here to the middle of those things instead of just from here to there. See what I'm saying? We got some damage on the wall there next to it. What do you think that's from?
I think that's probably from where somebody had tried to jump over and missed and hit that edge of the wall. Maybe that's why they erected the fencing.
Luckily that fence is there. You know, because if he was over just a little bit more and that fence wasn't there, you know, if I make it to that point right there, not having a fence is the least of my problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Gotta protect this empty room, whatever it is.
Well, it's for public safety. It's not to
Yeah.
protect the room. So let's zoom in on that. Public safety.
I gotta go down and see what the powder handling room is.
Yeah.
I gotta know why I need
It's
to
where they
protect
handle
this
powder.
stuff. Like, are we talking gunpowder?
Yeah, the powder magazine is definitely back here if you want to come see this one.
Yes, I do. So this is the area of the ship where the torpedo hit. What's in there?
It's like another long hallway. I guess it leads out. I'm not real sure. Yeah, that room we were in back there where everybody was sitting in was the last known place of this one particular guy. They knew he was inside the shower stalls over there, but I guess it's the last place he was ever seen when the torpedo hit. I don't know whether all these people were washed out to sea or what the case was, but
There's a total of 5 of them.
yeah, I think they said there was 5, yeah. They know one of them was washed out, for sure, but they don't know about the other.
So this area that we're in now is near where the torpedo hit, and the torpedo ripped a hole in the side of the ship that was 18 feet by 32 feet, and it filled the ship with 1,000 tons of water. Now, there were 5 people killed when this torpedo hit, one of which was taking a shower back here, in these showers, which are right over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an EVP session back here. I believe my figures could be a little bit off if I don't remember correctly, but surprisingly, the ship was only made to sustain a 700-pound blast, and the blast that hit them from the torpedo was 891 pounds. So it's like almost 200 pounds more than they were meant to withhold, and it still stayed afloat.
The men who died had gotten sealed in here. There's a sign up front when we came through one of the hatches that says this is the last place that these men were seen, and it has their names, where it sounds like they had to seal this area off so that the whole thing didn't go down.
Did go down, yeah.
So they got kind of trapped in here.
Yeah, this piece of paper here does list a couple of them. It lists the 2 guys that were supposedly in this area. I guess Albert Gary was on the main deck above, and he was washed overboard. They know that for sure. Leonard Pone was last seen in this cruise WC, whatever that is, before the torpedo struck September 15th, 1942. So they're probably assuming that he got washed overboard or washed out as well. But at least that gives us a couple of names of people to address when we're talking about
Albert.
Yeah.
Is there anyone with us that would like to speak with us or let us know that you're around with any type of sound or movement?
Leonard, how old were you? What state were you from?
or something? Something like tapping on the pipes. So behind me here is the part of the ship that got struck by the torpedo. It's where we just came out of, where the bathrooms are and the showers. And we did a spirit box session back there. We did an EVP session. We didn't get much from the spirit box at first glance. The EVPs, of course, we have to go over them. One interesting thing was every time we brought up the idea of us leaving, we heard a noise. When we brought up the idea of us staying, there was no noise. So we kind of got the vibe, it's not definite of course, but we kind of got the vibe that whoever was back there didn't want us to stick around. So we're about ready to wrap up for the investigation, and we get something to eat. Let's see if we can find a Sheets or something like that around here, you know what I mean? Alright, so we broke down our campsite here at Wilmington KOA, and this was a really nice place to camp. It's right down in Wilmington, close to everything. It's a nice little campsite. The campsite they gave us was, you know, it's surrounded by foliage and trees, and you know, it's still in the woods yet very close to the city. Right down the end of the road there, we're back in the city. Last night's investigation, I have to say that the Battleship North Carolina is an amazing place. It holds a lot of history. You know, you think of the men that served on that ship and the heroes that went off to war defending our country, and this time period was a wonderful time. You know, it was back in the 40s. They were going through war, of course, but it was a wonderful time in the sense that the whole country pulled together to fight this war, and America fought this war and came together and won it. And this ship serves as a reminder to those men who fought and some who lost their lives during this war. And to have the opportunity to go around it was really, really great. We still have to review the EVPs, the recordings, to see if we picked up any EVPs, and go over all the video and the pictures and stuff like that to see if we caught anything. While we were there, we had some pretty cool stuff happen. Nothing too extreme, but you know, a little more than we would expect from a typical place. We heard some noises that we couldn't explain, and some of the other teams that were there, was a joint investigation. We had two other teams that were also investigating the ship at the time, and they picked up some interesting stuff, some stuff. I think the medical ward was probably one of the more active places. And we're getting ready to head out of here now, but we're going to get some of the input from our other members and see what they thought about the investigation. But I definitely recommend coming down here and touring this battleship to check out all the history, and it's an amazing tour. It's a huge ship and a lot to see on it.
The Battleship North Carolina was, as Jeff said, amazing. It really was a walk back in time. Some of the shelves still had supplies on them. Papers were laying around. There was so many things that were still left over from the 1940s, and to think that these things had not been used or touched since then was just an amazing thought. And you know, you would sit down at a bench and think about all of the men that had probably sat on that bench, and perhaps some of them had lost their lives there. So as far as the investigation was concerned, it really was more than we expected. There was quite a few things that really were intriguing, and I can't wait to get back and go over the EVPs and see what we can find.
Okay, well, we're leaving the KOA, having spent the night at the USS North Carolina in Wilmington. And while I wouldn't call it a hotbed of activity, I think that we hopefully picked up a few things. There were a couple of times that we did seem to be getting an actual answer to something, so hopefully there might be an intelligent entity hanging out on the ship. And overall, I think once we review the evidence, we will, I think we have a good chance of finding something.